Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Glad to see you. Hello, hello. Just going to give folks another minute or so to arrive, but then we'll get started. Actually, I'm going to see about. No, I'm going to keep the waiting room on. Welcome. Good morning. You go ahead and let me know in the chat where you're joining from today. I just love to have an idea of where people are coming from. Some of you I know already, but beautiful. Welcome. Hi. Hi, Julia. Hi, Cornelia. Hi, Victoria. Hi, Rebecca. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. As you know, humans sometimes arrive late, so I might be letting more people in as we go. And if anyone's watching the recording of this later, welcome to you as well. Happy to have you here. So welcome everyone to this presentation about it's okay to want more, 3 shifts for high achievers ready to love their lives. And I just want to say you are in the right place if what was good enough for your parents, your friends, your spouse, maybe even a past version of you, what was good enough isn't cutting it anymore. And you perhaps have this quiet sense that you're meant for more, or just a feeling that there's like potential waiting in you, like a spring loaded that I need somewhere to go. That is a really normal, common experience for people, especially high achievers in this day and age. And you are totally in the right place if that resonates at all. And just wanting to say, I get it. I've lived it. There's a reason I'm here doing this work. And in fact, I have been in this tension between following this feeling that there's something more, that there's something waiting for me, and resisting this feeling and thinking, no, it's just what I have should be good enough. It is good enough. Here are all the ways it's good enough. I've been doing that for maybe 25 years. So it's been this push-pull. So if there's some of that push-pull experience that's familiar to you, trust me, I get it. But what I'll say is in the last dozen years or so, I have picked up some very useful skills and perspectives that are different from what I grew up with, different from what I think is kind of mainstream or normal, and we'll get into that more, but that I started letting guide my life. And they have these principles, these shifts have led me out of like a pretty cool, sparkly job that I was in. I used to be a magazine editor. And I was at Backpacker magazine and I got to travel and I got all sorts of free gear, but I was burning myself out in a huge way and really resenting things. And I was able to leave that job and move into one that was even more aligned, another magazine editor business. And I followed these principles, just starting to get to know them as I left a marriage that was fine, but meh. And we just, he just had a baby last month with somebody else. Like it's like, thank goodness we didn't stay together. And then I left that even better job because I started getting more and more committed to just really listening to this different way of being. And that led me on quite an adventure, but I ended up back here in Colorado where I live, starting my own copywriting business through StoryBrand, which was some of you are familiar with. Good to see some of your faces, which also turned out to be very joyful and abundant. But there came a moment in that business even where I had this same tension of like, this is really good. And I can tell this isn't the thing anymore. It was the thing. I followed it for a while and now something else is calling me. And so now I am in this coaching business, really getting to let this point of view be the big thing I'm doing in the world and so much more along the way. So I did a ton of deep learning and spiritual work. I won't get into all the details, but what I will say is if the me from a decade ago could see my life now, I'm pretty certain she would be very, very amazed and delighted by the amount of flow and meaning and pleasure and magic and joy and alignment that I have every day. And this isn't to say I'm like some superhuman who never has problems. I deal with challenges just like the rest of us. But fundamentally, there's a sense of, yes, I am on track that is pretty priceless. And the signs from life that bring it. So this is if you're here because you're wanting some of that, you're in the right place. And here's the thing about it. It's a very special experience to be having it, but I really believe that I am not having it because I am special or because I am in some way fundamentally different than anybody else, any of you. I'm having it because I learned skills that somehow have sort of disappeared from the map of a lot of what people are learning in our culture these days. But there are skills that anyone can learn, and to help step off this kind of hamster wheel that has become the normal thing. So take a breath with that. But if you feel like you're still in the right place, let's come along. I'm not going to be having any slides. We're just going to be in a conversation together. It's really beautiful to see your faces. And I'm just going to take a moment. I feel like butterfly excitement in my chest to be here with you. Just taking a moment to tune into that, inviting you to notice anything you're feeling in your body that's loud. And some of you already mentioned where you're joining from. But if you haven't thrown that in the chat, I would love to hear. We have folks from all over the US. I think Lynn is likely not in the US. And, and then another participation question for you, and this is a little more vulnerable, but if you're willing to name it, give me on a rating from 1 to 10, how much of a heck yes or an F yes are you to your whole life? And 1 would be like, it's horrible, it's on fire, I hate it. 10 is I'm living the dream. Your whole life, 1 to 10, how much of a big freaking yes are you to that? See 7s coming in, a couple 7s. 6. Yeah, this is 6.5 to 7, 6.6 actually. 7. Okay, great. 6. The dream I thought I wanted and now I don't think it fits. Yes, yes. This is super, super common. And nobody is here with like a 2 or a 1. Like your life isn't like a total mess. It's just there's this sense of like, what would a 10 be? So does this have to be a 7? Some of us were straight A students. 7 is not great if that's the paradigm you're going for. Okay, and then if you just first thought, best thought here, what would you say is the one big thing dragging it down? What's the one area of your life that's keeping it from being a 10 right now? Career, job, yep. Work stress. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Let's see if any mental load. Yeah, marriage. Yeah, that's a common one. Basically, work and marriage or relationship are often the two aligning values with work. Yeah, these are the two places we spend um, most of our time and energy is on our primary relationships and in our work. So expanding from job only to wholeness, I'm not sure what to do that will really move the needle in my career. Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. Just trying to get a pulse check here, and I just want to say all very normal things that do not mean you've done anything wrong or that it has gone completely off the rails. So just to kind of set the container for the rest of our time here together, obviously I can't download everything that I would love to in an hour. Although actually I wish I could. Like this is sort of a left, like, could I give a transmission that would change all of it in 1 hour? That would be amazing. It's my ambitions that I'm getting towards, but so I'm going to do some teaching here in the first 35 or 40 minutes. And then I'm going to make sure that you get a chance to hear about how to get like really effective support with stepping more fully into your one wild and precious life. I'm also going to make sure that we leave time to answer lots of questions. So, and I am pretty great about getting you out on time. If we have more questions, then we can keep going, but I really try hard to keep us in the commitment we made here. So just inviting everyone into just a moment of a deeper breath. Let yourself really just take the deepest breath you've had all day. Seeing where you notice it in your body. If you have any excess energy that's ready to move, let it either sink or float off. And just for a moment, let yourself feel and wonder about what is your intention for being here today? You don't have to share it necessarily. Just let yourself let yourself know what you want to get out of taking this time out of your day and showing up live or taking the time to watch this replay. And then see if you would be willing to even know what it would mean to take responsibility for letting this time be meaningful for you. Now, of course, I'm going to also do that. I'm taking my responsibility for offering you something meaningful, but what's in your control that you can let this time that you've decided to take being here be really meaningful for you? And again, no need to overthink this, just making space for that to come. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. So I may continue pausing us to take deep breaths, just as I sense in my own body and in the field that that could be useful. We tend to be very in the head, and part of the work here is coming down into all of us. So something I like to try and make sure we're doing. And I just want to start with a little deeper, naming some of those symptoms or issues that you might have gotten you here today. And a lot of you have a sense of what the problem is, but I want to point out that all these things I'm about to list are to me a symptom of the deeper problem we're going to talk about. So if you never seem to have time for the things that you most want to do, especially creatively, that is a symptom of what I would call misalignment. Or you feel like you're pouring your life force out like crazy every day, but it is not moving the needle on the stuff you most care about. You have no idea what you really want, but you know this isn't it. Or you do know what you want, and for some reason you're just not doing it, even though you're usually the kind of person who's pretty good at doing the thing you know you want. Or you know what you want, you start doing it, and then it starts to scare the crap out of you because it is so off the rails from what you have learned is the right way for you, or what has been familiar or acceptable. Another symptom is you might feel dread or overwhelm and obligation when you look at your calendar. Like if you open your planner for the week and you're just like, oh, that is a symptom here of misalignment. As we already were mentioning, a lot of people are talking about this. There's a big aspect of your life, like marriage or career, that has you feeling trapped. And you're in this question about, should I stay? Should I go? What do I do about that? People are depending on me. There's things I care about here. I don't want to burn it down. Chelsea's saying a little charcuterie board of all these things. Yes. The tapas, the cheese, the olives. Another symptom is you keep saying yes to things you don't really want to do. And then your week, and that's sort of, it's related to the calendar thing, because then your week is full of things that you've said yes to that you don't really want to do, but you, being a responsible, high achieving person, are going to do the thing you said yes to, even though you don't really want to, right? You keep having this thought that like once this next thing is done, once this phase of life or this next project or this next season is done, I'll finally have the space, I'll figure this out, but that it doesn't actually come. That familiar to anybody? You're very good at taking care of other people's needs, but have trouble even knowing your own. This is something a lot of women especially are conditioned into, though it's not only women who struggle with that. You might be noticing resentment creeping into your relationships. That's a good symptom that there's something out of alignment for you. And just this idea that you suspect that something important in your life needs to change, but the idea of changing it is just like, oh, it kind of makes you want to puke a little, or it's overwhelming, or it's easier to avoid it. Yeah. So some nods if any of that feels familiar. And then here are some of the ways that I have seen and know that a lot of the most successful, awesome people that I know like try to fix these, right? So one thing is you could get really strict with your calendar, really like making sure all those squares are all exactly lined up perfectly, and really trying to fit more in. I just want to say all these things, there's nothing wrong with any of them. It's not like, I'm not saying any of them are actually a bad idea. I'm just saying they're ways that that when we try to fix it, it might not actually be working. So another big one is just staying really busy with the things that you have committed to and that you've said yes, and just kind of, if you really admit it, you might be avoiding or ignoring just the fact that this is actually something that's bugging you. That's something that I know I've certainly done plenty of. It's like, well, there's this next deadline, so let's not think about that. Signing up for a class of some sort, like pottery or improv or a comedy show. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that. There's just, it can be a way of just trying to fix this deeper misalignment thing. Taking a vacation, giving yourself a really hard time about it and insisting you're going to do better, but then it doesn't change. This idea of thinking it through, figuring it out, a lot of pros and cons list or strategic planning. Like I've heard a lot of people be like, this isn't working, I need to figure it out. So that, if that's a thought, you've thought it. And then there's a lot of actions we can take about figuring it out. Feeling jealous of other people. It's maybe not something you choose to track it, but it's a way of you can see your system pointing towards something different. Another planning app, or another, trying to double down on your discipline, telling yourself you just need more willpower. Another podcast, another book about purpose. Hiring a business coach to help you execute and plan better can be a way people try and fix this, which is, can be really helpful for executing and planning better. Here's a big one. Convincing yourself that this is just what being adult is like. That, of course, there are things you have to do as an adult that you don't love. And that's just how it is. And let's not be ridiculous and think that we deserve something better. Or, as was in kind of the title of this webinar, telling yourself you should be grateful for what you have. Hoping this feeling will eventually go away. Maybe something will just happen. Did I miss anything that feels like a way that you see yourself either having symptoms of this issue or trying to deal with it? Anything loud for anybody that comes up? You can go ahead and put in the chat. Tried to be fairly comprehensive, so if the answer is no, that's totally fine. Cool. If anybody thinks of anything, let me know. Sounds like me. Right. So again, as I said a few times, there is nothing bad or wrong about any of these things. I am all for a vacation. I am all for smart calendaring. I am all for taking classes on things you're interested in. I am all for, productivity systems and planning and business coaching and all that. It's just, they don't get to the real problem of this thing. It's kind of like trying to brush your teeth in the mirror. It's like, because we think the problem is something like discipline or planning or time management, the type of problem that we can solve with our mind skills, the achiever skills that have gotten us to where we are, the skills we've been rewarded for through our whole life. But the real problem is that this is not like a left brain achievement issue that you're feeling these symptoms of. It is a right brain dominant alignment problem. And to solve an alignment problem, there's a whole world of, it's not about getting rid of all the things that have had you achieving these left brain mind skills that you have so deeply been rewarded for and cultivated throughout your life. There's a transcending and including that needs to happen so that your high achiever self is now part of your high aligner self, your high alignment person. So it's like as if you're needing to change fuel source and dashboard and what you're paying attention to. And so I'm going to talk about a little bit more about like what that shift looks like. But this is a huge shift that will start to, if you don't do it, you can do all those mindy left brain planner achiever skill things, and you won't actually get to the root of the problem. If you are making these changes, then some of the activities you might take or the actions you might take may look fairly similar, but the place you're taking them from will be different. And thus the reason, the understanding, and thus the impact can be really different. And so I said I wasn't gonna, I'm trying to decide if I'm going to share my Google Doc here with you guys just to see, like, I have a side-by-side chart of, I'm a visual learner. Let's do that for a second. I didn't make slides, but where is my share screen? There we go. So I'm just going to share this little, just side by side a bit of the difference between these types of skills of high achiever versus high aligner. So just for something for you to look at while we talk about it. High achiever is fundamentally, if you really, really get to the core of it, a set of habits and ways of being that is powered by anxiety. There's this sense, the goal is to kind of finally get enough approval or control or security. And again, we're not trying to totally get rid of that, but I'm pointing to a possibility of a set of skills that have you powered by what I call wild genius. That's the name of my business. That's a term I made up. You could call it a lot of things. Call it intuition. You could call it soul. You could call it just regular genius. You could call it your wild, mysterious self. There's a lot of different ways you could call it alignment, but it's powered by a different force. And the goal, the thing you're optimizing for, you are actually optimizing for meaning and aliveness from this place, right? And you get what you optimize for. And so you're not getting rid of your capacity to optimize, but you're really changing what it is. And it's a lot more right brain than left brain. It's more focused on whole than parts. It doesn't kick out the head, but it deeply includes the body, the gut, and the heart. It doesn't kick out strategy, but it starts to prioritize this possibility of discovery, and in fact, the necessity of discovery. It rebalances the prioritization of feeling, whereas logic, again, we're not kicking out logic, but we're now really rebalancing having feeling be there. It prioritizes being instead of doing coming from being. How are we being as we're doing starts to become a very, very central, important question. There's more potential focus on the internal and the invisible. If yin and yang means something to you, it's a reprioritization of yin. It's more of a focus on trust than doubt. And then these are both hormones or chemicals in the brain. Cortisol, you've probably heard of, it's a stress hormone. There's this sense of like anxiety and adrenaline. It very much powers our world. Cortisol, adrenaline, achiever. Well, high aligner, we're optimizing for the potential of oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone that gets activated in breastfeeding. It helps us really feel calm and safe, but it's available with connection, with a sense of trust. High achiever is really worried about what we're doing in any given moment. The high aligner is worried about how are we doing it, from where are we doing it. High achiever has more of a focus on plans. High aligner has more of a focus on presence. And then there's this thought, it's all up to me, that is a pretty common one that comes through when we're in our achiever self. And the aligner is I'm part of something larger. And so this is just a map that I pulled together based on a bunch of, a lot of this wisdom, a bunch of different teachings. Again, it's not that we're trying to kick out that left side there. It's that we're trying to reintegrate and integrate at a whole new level, something that I think that we have deeply, deeply culturally kind of kicked out and lost, and the skills of, and then we're also just all as a species and a humanity discovering a whole new level. We are at levels of achievement that we've never been at before. The possibility of what one business owner, for example, can achieve in her life in 2026 is like completely different than what was available to most people 100 years ago. The possibility of achievement, we're getting very good at that. But now there's this need to add this other thing. So as you learn to step into this different fuel source, different dashboard, what you're aligning to, this sourcing from wild genius. So learning to source from it is one thing, but the other thing is that to really do it, if you set an intention to do it, if you're trying to live this way, you then get to run into all the cobwebs and all the obstacles and all the resistances that are the reason you haven't already been doing it, and that the reason that your parents weren't doing it and the people around you weren't doing it. There's a lot of cultural, ancestral, it's almost like I see it like a web or a cage. It's like there's a lot of infrastructure that we are all invisibly living in that is was protective and useful at one time. We each have our own individual histories with this, and then we have a bigger picture of it. And that doesn't like change. And is going to be part of what you need to come into right relationship with as you start trying to make these changes. So if even living this way is something that you have started to try to do, if elements of this are things that you met before and are trying to bring in, it's still incredibly normal to then run into a lot of obstacles as you start to do it, because there's this transcending including also includes like digesting pieces that still need digesting from your past and from the cultural context that you have been in. I'm going to take a breath there. So in the title, actually, I'm just going to take my own medicine for a second here and just pause and notice the state of being I'm coming from. Not the type of thing you normally see on a webinar, right? Like, this is not what our business world is normally aligning to, that we are people in bodies with wisdom coming through it, having an experience here. Yeah. So that's one major shift, just a whole shift from high achievement fuel on anxiety to high alignment fueled on presence and wild genius. But there are 3 specific shifts that I promised you in the title of this webinar. So just want to touch on those. So the first one that is a skill you need to start practicing to really be living in this different way more and more. And it's not, I just want to say, it's more like a dimmer switch. It's not like a light switch where you just like, you go from one to the other. It's like, you can be in the gray area in between. You can have moments of each. And the goal is just more and more and more towards this aligned version of you that has integrated the achiever. She's bringing her along, but she's using her more consciously and then really orienting from a different place. So the first shift, and this is something you just saw me doing a little bit of, just a tiny taste, is to tell the truth in as often as you possibly can remember to about where you're moving from. Are you moving from fear in this moment, or are you moving from trust in this moment? Are you moving from anxiety or from cortisol? And for most of us, when we start having any intention of paying attention to this, one, it requires a lot of self-awareness, which is a muscle to build too, to even remember to check in. But most of us are spending, 90% of people are spending 90% of their time in fear, in the tightness, the anxiety, the adrenaline state, the stress state. And that needs to also not be a problem as we tell the truth about where we're moving from. It's not, part of the invitation is to just start to get onto ourselves. We're in bodies that have, learned to survive through millennia by being very alert to danger. The ones who were just entirely relaxed all the time didn't survive to keep going, right? And so we come by it very honestly on that level, and then we live in cultures and in families who have their own very specific patterns of what we're alert to and scared of all the time. And so telling the truth about where you're moving from. Am I moving from fear or from trust in this exact moment? Is one of the big game-changing practices. And it is a practice, and there's lots of ways you can start to put timers on your phone. You can put sticky notes all over. You can start to, just even tune in and understand how you would know. How would I know whether I'm moving from fear or trust in any given moment? Those are some of the layers of learning this. But that shift about being honest with yourself starts to, because with awareness comes choice. And so once you're being more aware of where you're moving from, there's a lot more choice in any given moment of how you want to be with it. So that's one really important shift and skill, is to start to notice, where am I coming from? Where am I? Is another way to put it. That's how some of my teachers at the Conscious Leadership Group frame it. Where am I? And they make it really simple. Am I above the line, which is that state of trust, that state of genius, that state of oxytocin and presence? Or am I below the line? And most of the time, I'm probably going to be below the line. And that's fine. So that's one of the big shifts. Another one and it's related and it's different. And again, you've seen me practicing it a little bit just in our time together here, is to start to really, really get committed to letting your body tell you what is aligned. And this is a very, we call it ancient or natural skill that many of us have been highly conditioned out of, to letting our body know what's aligned. We were rewarded through our whole childhoods by generations of people who are also conditioned and rewarded this way to override our inner signals a lot. And so letting the body tell you what's aligned is both something very natural that I believe literally every human can have access to, and something that has been pretty papered over. And another reason it gets papered over is because both the wisdom and truth of wild genius and alignment speak through the body, and also so does the trauma that is stuck in our bodies. And I would venture to say that I think pretty much anyone alive in our world at this time in history, perhaps in any time in history, has some amount of traumas in their body. And it doesn't have to be because you had like a terrible childhood or something that would, look from the outside super traumatic, but it's that the systems most of us are living in are not particularly well aligned to what tiny babies need to not be overwhelmed and fearful. And even in the best conditions, there's things we can't control that can create that experience. So letting our body tell us what's aligned requires both being able to feel what's in the body and then being able to sort the signal from the noise of when is my body giving me really clear wisdom about the direction I need to move, in a way that if I'm only consulting my mind, I'm missing out on a ton of possibility. I mean, to me, the soul speaks through the body. There's mystery speaks through the body, but also trauma speaks through the body too. So how can I start to tell the difference between, is my like strong aversion that my body is giving me right now, is that something I absolutely need to listen to, or is it something I need to be tender with and care for and then set aside and say, actually, this is different. We don't have to, that's about the past in the present. So that skill of letting the body tell you what's aligned, it's multi-layered. It does involve sorting signal from noise. And I also want to say it's quite doable. It's just like going to the gym. It's a muscle. First day you go to the gym, if you've never been, you're going to want to pick up some light weights, and you might be pretty sore after, and it might feel overwhelming. But anyone who's ever, we're pretty familiar with the idea that if you do regularly show up at the gym and you keep lifting those weights and you give your body time to recover and you keep going more, you will get stronger. And it's very much the same with this. I did not think of myself as a very like embodied or intuitive person 15 years ago. And now I think of myself as an extremely embodied, aligned, intuitive person who I very much let my body tell me what's aligned. And I still struggle with it sometimes. I still occasionally have trouble trusting it because that sorting the signal from the noise can be scary and hard sometimes. But I will say that my life has gotten so much more fun and interesting since I've started doing that. And then the last shift. And when I say it's the last one we're going to talk about for today. There's more. But the last shift that really, really is crucial to helping you move into this new way of approaching the world and orienting to the world. This is another one that is kind of simple, but also huge and kind of radical. It's like a really big invitation. And I don't take it lightly, but it's to choose to manage your mind and believe that you're always safe. And it would be very reasonable if you would want to start arguing with me about all the ways that you're objectively not safe, right? This is easier said than done. But notice how being in that state of genius and creativity, there's a point of view that you can choose and decide to keep coming back to. And there's no way that I can prove to you that this point of view is true. Exactly. Like I can't prove it, so I'm not going to try. And there's no like dogma in it. There's not there's not a, it aligns with a lot of spiritual traditions, but you don't necessarily need to bring it. But this point of view that life is benevolent, that even things you don't understand that feel really painful or uncomfortable are not out to get you, that there's order in it all, there's reason for it all, that life is an ally, that you can trust everybody and everything to be an ally. These are different ways of saying the same thing. Another way to say it is that you can trust that all the approval, all the control, and all the security that you would ever need is actually already there inside you with something deeper than, bigger than you. All these different things. Another way to put it would be that anything that happens to you is a gift or an opportunity, that an appropriate response to anything is good. The word good. These are all options for ways to think about it. I love playing the game this way. That's the way it was framed to me, is like, what if you just choose to decide that you're playing the game this way and see what happens as you start to decide to keep returning to this thought. Of course, I have a human body with fear. I have a brain that has been conditioned by, a similar cultural milieu that we all came to. It's a practice. All of these are practices. But it is a practice that, in terms of this stuff with meaning and alignment and joy and having my life be beyond just the achieving, this trust that no matter what I do, no matter how much I F things up, no matter how big a risk I take, that fundamentally at my core, there's something untouchable that will always be safe. This is what has given me a vast amount of courage to do a lot of things that were really scary and hard, and that ended up being leaps towards alignment in the long run. Was trusting. Another way to put it, I had a yoga teacher who used to say, it's better to be wrong than to be vague. This idea that, can you be willing to take the risk towards jumping into this, towards being wrong, towards trusting that you could never actually F it up so much that you have to be in control all the time and that it's all up to you. The fact that that point of view can lead straight to, is part of the path towards wanting more and enjoying your life more, may not be completely linear or make sense, but it's a huge part of what allows you to be willing to take the risk of listening to those things that your body tells you are aligned. And it's part of what helps you move more often from trust and fear, because it's a thought that helps you have trust in whatever's happening. And Chelsea's saying, I am divinely guided. I'm always in the right place at the right time, and the door will open for me when it's meant to. Trust is everything in unknown territory. Yes, exactly. Trust is everything in unknown territory. I love that, right? Because what we're finding, like fundamentally the thing that I teach and that we're here talking about, is how do you trust yourself to navigate through the wilderness when the road you were following didn't get where you wanted to be, and maybe there's no more road. Like, what happened? And I spent a lot of time literally backpacking and in the wilderness, so this feels like a relevant metaphor to me. But it's like, how do you have enough trust and possibility in your internal map and in being in tune and aligned with things that you can keep finding your way when that achiever version of, like, we're gonna do the map, it just isn't getting there anymore? And if it is getting there, then great, you don't need to do this. But for most of us, there comes a point where it's not going to get there. Yeah, most of my blocks are mental, so this feels like a very essential practice. Yeah, everyone's blocks are mostly mental. Like, we are pretty much creating our own experience all the time. So yeah, better to be wrong than vague. Really let me jump off some significant cliffs in my lifetime, metaphorically. And some of them, in retrospect, you could look at and be like, oh, that might have been wrong, but I don't really regret any of them. It's like, oh, I see how I could have done that better. Yeah. So when you start doing these things, telling the truth about where you're moving from, letting your body tell you what's aligned, and then choosing to manage your mind and believe that you're always safe, you get to trust your instincts more and stop second guessing yourself. You get to love the reasons for your decisions, even as they're scary. You start to feel more spaciousness in your days. Your calendar gets to start reflecting what actually matters to you because you notice when your body is saying yes or no and you listen. Tuning into this creativity, and it's like it's a different energy source, it's a different fuel source, it has less residue, and so you feel more energy for your work and your creative life. Stop pouring your life force into things that don't matter to you. You start to be able to find your way to less resentment in your relationships. And because you're feeling more honest and like yourself, and you're being more honest and like yourself, you stop creating the conditions where the resentment is going to breed. You start to be able to trust that you can handle whatever emotions arise, even if they're uncomfortable. And this is a really important one. You stop trying to solve everything intellectually and start living from deeper clarity. Because I don't think that I truly believe we cannot think our way into a life that feels deeply meaningful. We have to prioritize meaning and aliveness and the things that our bodies are telling us about that. And it may not make sense in the moment. There might be things, or to parts of you, there are ways that it's just mysterious. I think we're supposed to dive into the mystery. I think that's an absolute crucial part of growing into the next step. So you get to feel more alive and more fun in play, more satisfied. You get to rest and actually enjoy it. You get to have a bigger impact because you're operating from this genius. This genius, there's a quote I love: just ask not what the world needs, ask instead what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. I've been like obsessed with that quote since I first heard it a decade ago. And you start to have the clarity and courage to forge your own path. And then once you're doing that, this is the fun part. When you get into this co-creative relationship with the thing that is bigger than you, that you're trusting, that is mysterious, and that you don't need necessarily any particular spiritual background to start playing this game. I certainly grew up in an incredibly atheist container. So, this has been a journey for me to even start to be open to playing the game this way. But what I can promise is that there will be more flow in your life, more just serendipity or things working out or really surprising lucky coincidences or things where you're just like, whoa, how did that happen? I could never have planned that. Your days start to feel more magical. You feel like there's more time because you're more present for it. And when hard things happen, you can handle them with more ease and grace and get back to thriving more quickly because you have the skills of being with that in your body. So, okay, my friends, so that's the core transmission I have for you today. That's the class, and I will be totally happy to answer any questions you have about what I've taught or how it applies to you. But before we move into questions, I want to name something really important. So everything I taught and talked about today, I am really confident works. I've seen it transform my own life. The teachings and the lineages I bring this from have been around for, in their current format for decades, and in more ancient formats for millennia. But hearing about it once isn't what actually helps you make the change. It happens when you start to practice these micro moment by moment shifts in real time and with support and reflection, and to see and break out of the patterns. I mean, I just had a decision I made it's going to be in my newsletter tomorrow, but a decision I made in the last week where my body was a clear no, and I was still in so much resistance to taking the leap and listening to that, even though this is what I teach, even though this is what I've been doing for a decade. And it took really good reflection from somebody who could see, who mirror me back to myself and understand where I was coming from, that allowed me to get through the fear that I had and make the shift anyway. So, and most of us humans, especially achievers, we're very good at taking in information, but then our nervous system is trained to go back to what's familiar because it's what kept us safe and successful to now. And we can't see what we can't see. So if nothing really changes, the default pattern is going to win. The achiever pattern that you've been rewarded for forever, and months and years can go by. And also, most of us are very good. I think you guys are starting to be the exception because you decided to show up here, but most of us are very good at numbing to the pain of not living to our full potential. It is a pain that not very many people in your life are gonna be like, we need an intervention. This is a real problem, but it is actually a true need. It's a true pain, and it doesn't go away. And I'm very aware there's research out there that the number one regret people have on their deathbed is that they didn't have the courage to live true to themselves versus what other people expected from them. And it's not just the courage. I would actually, that is how they put it. I would say they also didn't have the skill to know what that was, and to be able to get through those hard moments and to change the stories in their heads and to listen to the body. I just want to name that right now you're in a moment, a rare moment. You showed up either to the replay or to this live. You're thinking about your life differently. I want to both reflect that and celebrate that. Your brain is open. And, in a week or two, it's possible the pull of the familiar might start to pull you back. The fierce things, you've pushed through the resistance is another way I want to put it. So if something of this conversation is resonating, and part of thinking, if you was thinking, yes, I want this, I would like to invite you to not leave the insight sitting on the shelf and to make your next step while your clarity is fresh. And so you get to decide for yourself what your next step is. Like, take a next step. I am begging you, like, while you're here, sort of in the vibe of this, that could be anything for yourself. It could be the main way I help people make these shifts is through one-on-one coaching. And it's deep personalized work where we slow down and recalibrate how you're actually living your life and what that looks like. I've got some folks on here who I've worked with before or am working with, but we meet weekly over Zoom for an hour, wherever you live in the world. I have people in Europe and I've worked with folks in Australia. And our work is really about helping you shift this operating system and not just thinking about it differently, because insight is one thing, but actually living differently, finding those moments where you need to pause and slow down to start noticing what your body is telling you. And I often offer new perspectives or beliefs to try on, kind of shining the light on, like, oh, wow, there's an idea in there or persona in there that's trying to convince you of something that you may not even believe when you really shine the light on it, helping you learn to feel your feelings instead of overriding them, giving exercises and experiments to try in your real life, and just really helping you take charge of your mind and your nervous system so you can start to run on this different fuel source. And it's a space where you get to be very honest. People find that I have a lot of space for whatever's really true. And so if that work resonates with you, then it all starts with a 75-minute consultation. And this is where we just step back and look at your life as a whole. Actually have someone scheduled with a couple of you who are on here already, and we'll explore what's working, what isn't working, what it is you actually want that you know of yet, and what's been getting in the way, and what this next chapter could look like. And I'll say that even just taking that time to listen and reflect and open to possibility is game changing for people. I have folks who have come on a consult, ended up not being the right timing or situation to work together, but they are still super grateful for taking that time. And so that part is free, no obligation. It feels like coaching could help. We'll talk about what that could look like. And if it doesn't, you still have taken a step or given yourself more clarity and direction. So if that is the next step that is resonating with you, if something is telling you, yes, I think, okay, maybe I should finally talk to Rachel about this, or go to wildgenius.com. It's my website. I can put it in there, and just click the book now button and see and find a consultation time that works for you in the next 2 weeks. And if you can't find a time that fits, just send me an email. You'll be getting emails from me after this too. You can just hit reply and we'll find a time that isn't on the calendar. Because if it matters to you, I truly believe it's worth taking space for. And with some version of taking action, please do not wait until the feeling fades and the patterning and the habits and the conditioning fills the space again. Take the step while you're still in this moment connected to what you want. So, and if you want to go book right now, I won't be offended. And that we have now a little bit of time left for Q&A. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, please go ahead and put it in the chat. And also, sometimes people are thinking questions but don't want to be the first one to ask. So I have a few that people come up with, but if there's anything, I'll give just a moment. But yeah, any questions about all that? I see here, the name just says owner, so I don't know who's talking, but feeling so inspired. Yeah, such important reminders for this time in my life where I was feeling nervousness as I step into my soul path. I'm understanding that it's not competence I'm lacking, but too much mind involved. Just needing to pause and feel trust in my inner wisdom, appreciating this space. Yes, yes. We are our minds. Yeah, one or two specific ways we can listen to our body. Absolutely. So again, this is something we practice literally every session in with my clients. But how do we listen to the body? Yeah. let's just all do it right now, really quick. Take a moment and just notice, just even ask, what is your body? What is the strongest sensation in your body right now? Right? So listening to the body can be when there's a question, when there's an issue, but even just moment by moment, bringing our awareness out of the head and into the body is absolutely a skill set. Most of us have very good reasons that we learned to not do that. It was a coping mechanism for the conditions we are in, whatever challenges. There was something in our very young childhood that had it make way more sense to not pay to come up with techniques around not feeling the body. And so now we have to get through some of those resistances sometimes. But so there are practices, and they don't even necessarily need to be like yoga, for example, is actually a really good venue. Any kind of physical fitness exercise where part of what they're doing there is helping you slow down and notice your body is a good way to start practicing it. But then listening to the body in the moment of a decision, or even just in the moment of, it's like giving yourself opportunities to let the body's wisdom be the one in charge. And like being at the gym, lifting small weights, starting with very small things is actually a really good way to practice. Like, which piece of fruit shall I grab at the grocery store? Like this is an opportunity, or which shirt should I pull out of the closet? Or I'm looking at a menu, which thing do I want to order? So those are ways to start listening to the body, to start, instead of thinking through a decision from the way you might normally, whatever the way you might normally, even noticing what that is, in these very low stakes places, can you start to see if there is a place that your body feels more like what a yes feels like and more like what a no feels like? And there is a meditation. I've actually, I lead it sometimes, and there's, I've written about it. I could send it out, but there's a meditation that sort of helps you tune your compass. But the really simple is like, just remember something that felt really great and notice what that feels like in your body. And remember something that felt terrible that you would never want to do again and see what that feels like in your body. And remember something that sort of felt like an obligation or that you said yes to because you felt like you were supposed to, and see what that feels like in your body. Those feelings, now go look for that when you pick an orange. Can you look for the yes feeling? Can you look for the yes feeling when you're deciding which route to drive home? And when you start to practice in those small ways, then you are able to start to trust more and more that you know what yes feels like, you know what no feels like, you know what a subtle no feels like. And as you start to know those and make decisions, it builds the courage to trust it. And I have absolutely taken this path myself. And you start being less and less willing to override the no, which is what happened for me. I said yes to something that I was kind of like, and then I really quickly was just like, oh my God, I actually can't. It's too much energy to override this. And I've gotten tuned in enough. This was just this week, so it's very fresh. Tuned in enough that it was like really, it was okay. I decided it was better to be wrong than vague. So I made a decision about one direction, and then very quickly it was like, oh no, too much. I can't do it. So yeah. And before I answer the next question, just quick reminder, if you want help applying this, you can book a free 75-minute consultation at wildgenius.com, and we can look at your life as a whole and figure out where you're stuck and what the next step actually is. Some of you might be booking consultations while we're talking, excited for that. So, okay. And Chelsea's saying, how do you navigate the noise when learning new things, specifically in business that is out of my comfort zone? Right. Am I feeling resistant because it's not the right strategy for me, or simply because it's unknown and it will be a fruitful path once I've moved through? Yeah, great question. How do I sort the signal from the noise, essentially, around this stuff? It is a practice. It's a similar thing. It's like, once you get more familiar with tuning into the body, like for me today, this is the first time I'm hosting this particular type of webinar, right? So I was getting to feel the sensations of fear in my body as we were coming closer to it. And Brene Brown's, FFT experience, if you know what that is, fucking first time, it's like, and to me, it's partly, it's like, I'm trusting I'm safe. I'm making the decision. There is a certain like gag and go that sometimes you decide you want to do. That's a phrase from one of my coaches, where you just know that the fear is here, you think it, and then you move through it, versus it's a different feeling for me. The nervousness of doing something new is, for example, a different feeling than the dread of, like, it's a different dread of, like, oh, I'm just not a notice. And in some cases, it just takes a little bit of experimenting and a little bit of actually asking the body too, is, you could even just ask yourself, from a state of as deep a state of presence as you can find, maybe in a moment where you're feeling relaxed or at the end of a yoga class, like, I just try, we have a lot of deep wisdom in there. And am I feeling resistant because this is not the right strategy, or because it's the unknown? And knowing, kind of getting onto ourselves of the ways we fear the unknown. And also, I have some exercises that I do with people where we get to this point where, like, we get to a point of neutrality where we could see a case for either direction. And from that point of neutrality, we're not as tight onto one or the other. And we've explored sort of what our resistance to one of them might be. And then that's where the wisdom of the body really gets to shine. Because if you can't make a wrong choice, well, then what's my pull? Where's my compass leading? And most of us actually, like, I think, especially once you get pretty far along in achiever land, that there's this sense of, we understand it's not like we don't like doing hard things. We know the satisfaction of doing hard things. Like, I think most of us don't quite give ourselves enough credit for when we feel like dopamine happens when we trust we're on the right path and we're in the middle of it. But it's the trusting we're on the right path. So it's not that none of us want to do anything hard. In fact, it's incredibly satisfying to do hard things. It's really unsatisfying to do hard things that are unaligned, right? And to do aligned hard things is like the best feeling in the world. So I hope that answered your question, Chelsea. Yeah, sometimes obsess about getting it right, and the FFT and overthink. Right? Yes. Yeah, 100%. Great. Okay. Well, yeah. I just want to say again, like, thank you so much for your time today and for being here. And just a reminder that, if part of you is excited about the possibility of change and another part of you is trying to keep everything exactly the same, that's completely normal. Nervous systems definitely are designed to prefer the familiar, even when the familiar isn't exactly what we want. And if you're telling yourself you're waiting for the perfect moment, it's usually just a matter of deciding. And just a reminder, go to wildgenius.com and book a consultation with me, or email me. Many of you know how to find me in a lot of different places. But really just taking the time to, be like some of the folks who I've worked with who, say the biggest changes often aren't external. It's often they finally feel honest with themselves. And then there's also this way about more serendipity, more flow, things working out in unexpected ways. And it's not like you have to instantly blow up your life if you get willing to start looking at what you really want. There's also a way you get to be friendly to the different parts of you that want different things, and to the people around you as you start to perhaps make new choices. Yeah. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. No idea it was my first time. Yeah, I've held groups, but there's always something new about some particular version. So yeah. Yeah, dimmer switch was really helpful. Yes, thank you all so much. So I will be sending out a replay in case there's anything you want to go back to, with also some info about how you can get involved. And I will be also, just for any of you that want another taste, a few of you I'll be seeing soon for consults. I look forward to that. And I'm also, just to let you know, I'm resuming my weekly office hours that I've been offering for free. Starts again next week, definitely having a couple more in March. And that's just an hour to drop in and talk about anything that's on your mind. So if there's something you want to come a little deeper and you don't quite feel ready for a consultation, those are on my website under the events tab. You could get that on your calendar. That could be your next step. But please do make some kind of commitment to yourself about what it might look like to start really trying to live these shifts. I would love to hear that. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you so much.